most men don't marry middle-aged women with children who are struggling, and that's the realistic
scenario. You'd be surprised. There's a lot of simps out there.
Okay, so I'm gonna react to this.
Women that are traditional, but I'd be very foolish to not admit that from the female perspective is also tough, because feminism hasn't just hurt women, it's also hurt men, because a lot of guys don't feel the need to rise up to their duties and be a protector or provider. A lot of guys nowadays want a 50-50 relationship with a woman. Yeah. So I would say step one is make it.
Well, yeah, because, and I don't agree with Myron on this, but I do see the thought process when it comes to 50-50 relationships. So Myron, I believe from what I've seen, he advocates for men to cover all the bills. Now, and I've heard men say that you don't get a certain level of respect from a woman unless you cover like everything in the relationship. Now, the downside of this is, again, we had This Is Shaw on. He explained how the child support system works. Men are on the hook for way more child support if they have a stay-at-home wife. And the other issue is in 2025, women aren't having kids like that. So most men have jobs. They don't have businesses like Myron. What is this woman going to be doing all day? So my opinion's a little more nuanced, but I do see where he's coming from. I understand the perspective. So I'm not one way or the other. There's pros and cons of both. The way I think about it is, if your wife's cheating on the job, right? At least she's screwing a guy with a job, and like she's probably, screwing her boss. And at least she, how do I say this? At least she, like, how much time is she going to have to cheat on you? She's working 40, 50 hours a week. If she's a housewife, she has all the time in the world to just, screw Tom, Dick, and Harry. So that's the issue.
Sure that you find a guy that like believes in traditional values. Like if you find some progressive guy that wants to go half and half with you, that's going to be a miserable existence. And then also you mentioned that you're Christian. Finding someone that has those values as well is going to be super important. I will say, luckily, there's more young men now that are trying to, adopt this. So, young men are starting to become more and more conservative. I think from the last 10, 15 years of, leftist bullshit that they've been dealing with. But yeah, it's still going to be tough, man. I mean, I would say your church, through social groups, your family might know someone. But yeah, I would say just definitely be cautious and take your time. You're what, 21?
No, I'm almost 24.
24?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then a little bit of speed then.
But
you don't want to get to 28, 30 and not have a guy.
No. I want to be a young mom for sure.
Find a guy now for sure.
I guess my question was more so like not dating wise.
Do you know what's interesting? So the female strategy is to spend all of our youth on ourselves and none on the husband, right? To use our youth for our benefit. And the male dating strategy is to get the young, hot women to marry and date young. So it's interesting because when men say that, they're basically saying to women, adopt our mating strategy. And there's a good case for it, right? They're much better people. So they're a lot nicer with it, obviously, than we are. But it's like interesting because I'm like, yeah, she's not going to do that. And also the church, good luck. No, that's not going to work.
I guess because I know my end goal is that I want to be home with the kids. I want to be cooking. I want to be cleaning. I want to be the homemaker. But because I'm not there right now, what should I be doing?
Oh, okay,
right now?
Okay. I see what you mean. Now for finding a guy, and rather, what should you do now?
Yeah.
Preserve your value. So for men, right? I always say men have to build their value. Women have to preserve their value. So when women turn 18, you get all the value in the world, because now I'm assuming you're like a virgin or have a low body count or whatever. Like your job from that point forward is to preserve yourself for the best guy.
Yeah.
So for women, just preserve, find the guy, get married ASAP. Men, create value, women got to...
Yeah, but, okay, the reason this advice is just not helpful, where is she going to find the guy? Like, that's the question. What's the best she can do? Where does she find him? When does she sleep with him? You know what I mean? Because if I'm going to be more realistic here, like 24, you can maybe sell purity. I would say go on a dating app, download the app, go on dates, sleep with the guys you're attracted to. until one commits. That's really the best, unless he might have a better game plan. But, you know, just preserve. There's a lot of women sitting in their apartments doing nothing. But they don't get, like, I have the perspective of, like, time, and see the women that, like, don't do it proactively kind of end up by themselves.
Serve it.
Got it. All right. Well, thanks. You're doing
No
a great
problem.
job.
So basically, do what you're doing. Preserve your value. Don't be a thought.
Got
and you'll
it.
be good.
Thank you.
Cool. Any single Christian guys? There you go. You got someone here. Oh, hey, who knows? You might meet somebody here. Who's up next? Hey, what's up, man? How are you? Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Hello?
Hi, how are you?
All right. I'm here to debate on why women should not be in the kitchen.
Okay.
So after marriage, I have a question.
Went down on it. All right. Are we back up on YouTube? Yeah. On Myron Gaines X? Yeah. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
So 50% of marriages in the United States end up in divorce, correct?
Roughly. Yeah.
Yes. So 82% of men in marriages ask for prenups. If you search up that statistic, it is true. What do you expect women whose only capability is being in the kitchen and cleaning to do after that divorce with the prenup?
Well, okay, that's a dumb argument. I could think of, okay, because the thing is, people don't know how to cook and clean. So if you actually took your job as a stay-at-home wife seriously, you could be hired. You could either be hired as like a maid, and some of them are running businesses like for apartment complexes. They're not making bad money. Yeah.
And
Okay.
they don't have any assets or money given to them.
Sure. Good question. Well, the family laws actually were written with that taken into account. This is why men get destroyed in divorces a lot of times nowadays, because what's happened is the family court system was created specifically to protect women from that very problem that you mentioned. She devotes her life to him, devotes her life to the family, to the kids, etc. And they don't want it where he rug pulls her, leaves with everything, and she's destitute. So that's why alimony, child support, all of these things were put into place to protect women from that. The problem, though, is that
the other thing too, Myron, like people aren't, this is why you kind of got to adapt with the times. Women aren't having, like, there's no reason for women to stay home if they have less than like 2 children. Like, okay, the first 5 years of the kid's life, sure. But just my point of view, a lot of stay-at-home wives just are women that don't want to work and they want a retirement plan. I don't see a lot of women doing super extravagant cooking to the point, like, I don't know. I've cooked for a family of like 4 or 5. It doesn't take that much time. Like, I don't know what, I guess if you're doing something super complicated, but like you can make a nice rice dish, chicken, steak, like a pasta dish. It'll take you what, like half hour, 40 minutes. Anyways.
the laws haven't caught up to feminism and progressivism giving women, equal rights and equal ability to earn. So I would say, number one is...
Now, I had a thought. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to let this play a little longer. I do this sometimes, I know. I had a thought. In a way, if the women work and the man's a stay-at-home dad, I was thinking about this. Aren't the women like more submissive in a way because they're giving the guy their page? If they do, they don't. Usually it's like demasculating women, but okay.
Not probable that your husband's going to leave you. It's actually, there's a whole phrase, it's cheaper to keep her. It comes from the concept that it's cheaper for a guy to simply just stay married versus divorce his wife. Most women initiate divorce, like 90%. So I would say there's safeguards in there to kind of deal with the problem that you mentioned, which I get it is a viable concern, but the family court deals with it.
So you believe that even though men may not leave their women because it's cheaper, a woman should stay in her marriage. Let's say he cheated, let's say other issues, because there are other reasons for marriage other than the men specifically leaving the woman.
Yeah. So your question is, do they cheat, or what do you?
No, I'm saying that, for example, a woman might have to leave under her own circumstances, not because the men believes that the marriage shouldn't end because it's cheaper. A woman might leave in any other way.
Yeah.
So when she's out in the world, she cannot get a job. because she had not get a college education and her only experience was working in a kitchen.
That is just not true. Okay, you could get a job in a new kitchen. You could be a private chef. Like, where's the problem-solving skills?
Because that is what some men like you believe she should be doing.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is that if she leaves, that's her personal decisions, and she's got to deal with the consequences of that, right? Like, if she's going to go ahead and break up her family and leave her husband, there's going to be negative consequences to that, right? Like, you know, I didn't see any complaints for the 10 years where she was with him and she didn't have to work and she was able to kind of...
Plus, you got 10 years of raising kids. Do you know how many daycare? My sister works at a daycare.
chill and, you know, live a certain lifestyle. But then she wants to leave and be able to say, okay, well, I don't want to deal with negative consequences of breaking up my family. And I think that's kind of the bad part is women prioritize their happiness in a relationship over their duty. And they'll leave because they're not happy.
Do you believe happiness is should be considered whether it's in domestic abuse situations? Let's say your husband abuses his wife. Do you believe the woman should stay there in that relationship, which could cause trauma to the child because of the family's happiness?
Now, obviously, you're being specific with domestic violence. Though that does occur, it's not the majority of reasons, right? It just comes down to women just not being... Well, here's the thing. Let's have a very honest conversation here. A lot of these phrases are bullshit. Oh, verbal abuse. Oh, emotional abuse. It can literally be him saying, yo, you need to do X, Y, Z, or him critiquing her. And she'll say that's verbal abuse. The problem is that we've basically conflated valid criticism or anything that needs to be said in a relationship to keep it going as abuse. And we tend to defer to what women say and believe them on at face value for everything that they say. So what's ended up happening is women don't really take accountability in relationships anymore, and everything is verbal abuse or I'm being assaulted or or verbal assault. I've heard like stupid shit like this. He might say, hey, you know what? I need you to do X, Y, Z. She'll look at that as this is abusive. So not only has it been where we've created like this weird environment where women want to go ahead and destroy relationships, we've also created stupid vernacular to kind of try to criminalize or pejoratively label constructive criticisms or healthy conversations within relationships. Because in other words, the man is always wrong. The woman is always right.
So I feel like you're kind of deflecting my point. I'm talking about in a scenario that there is domestic abuse and it is in fact
then, yeah,
true.
she should leave. If she's being assaulted, she should leave.
Yes.
But that is not the majority.
Okay, but let's say there is a woman who in this scenario is.
Yeah.
You do believe that she should stay in the kitchen. This woman...
Well, if he's beating her ass, then no.
Obviously.
Yeah.
She goes into the real world with a child because obviously no woman is going to leave her child with an abuser with no experience, no job, no degree. No woman is going
This is why Myron lost his hair. Had to get a transplant.
to survive in that world because we live in an economy where things are extremely expensive, where you do need a degree to survive unless you're going to marry again.
Well,
and most men don't marry middle-aged women with children who are struggling. And that's the realistic scenario.
You'd be surprised. There's a lot of simps out there.
That's what I say too. Because I used to say, I swear to God, I used to say no guy will ever take her. And then life just kind of, I was like, oh, yes, they will. You would be surprised.
You'd be surprised.
And
there's a lot of steps out there that would do that. Again, I see the specific scenario you're mentioning. Yes, if a guy's beating his wife's ass, yeah, she should leave. But that isn't the majority of the situations. A lot of times it's the woman feels like I could do better. I'm bored, or, you know, I just don't feel the spark anymore. We grew apart. All these bullshit phrases that women use to justify breaking up with a guy because they're not happy anymore, and they leave. So it's not the DV like you're claiming. That could be a part of it, but that's a minority.
Also, men are more commonly in marriages to commit infertility than women. So
to commit what?
And for